in political science at the Australian National University. Oh my god, I can't even say the word student, I just say student.
Keep going.
Sturgeon. I'm Luke, I'm a political science student at the Australian National University, and here's a bunch of parties that want you to vote, and let's see their positions and shit. Okay, gay marriage. Who wants to let homos get married? Because, you know, they sort of want to do that shit. Green's cool with that. Labour sort of does, but doesn't really. Labour has that sort of, yeah, it's in our constitution you're allowed, but we're not going to make people do it. We're not going to make people do it. So they're a little bit so-so. At half. Well, actually, a bit more like a third. 2/3, sorry. Because, you know, that's how much of the caucus at the moment currently supports it, which is a bit of an issue for anyone who likes a government that supports gay marriage. Whereas Abbott, on the other hand, Abbott's little LNP, some of the party wants to do it. Most of the party's pretty pissed off that they're not allowed a conscience vote. Considering it's the only issue where they're not allowed a conscience vote, they're pretty damn angry. That serves them right, because they're a Liberal Party after all. They're supposed to have such liberties as to discern their own votes and whatnot. So, Abbott's not letting anyone have a vote on it. So, they're not going to do it at all. So, not going to get any homos married with Abbott. And that includes Abbott's little sister. Christine Forster, who's a Liberal councillor for the City of Sydney, is currently in a long-term relationship with another woman, and she desperately wants to get married, which is quite unfortunate for her because it is her brother who is preventing her from getting married. Moving on, Bob Katter. Bob Katter thinks it is ridiculous. It should be mocked and laughed at. The very notion that the gays should be able to get married or have the notion of equal rights. Which, you know, is his position, it's his party. He can say what everybody wants. So no, unfortunately, Bob Katter has a little brother, well, a little half-brother, Carl Katter, who gets a little bit cranky from time to time and sort of mentions that he's cranky with his brother from time to time. And he sort of joined the ALP just to stick it into him because he sort of likes the whole gay marriage thing and his own rights to get married and whatnot. Okay. On asylum seekers. Well, the Greens are cool with asylum seekers. The Greens want the asylum seekers to be able to come here in larger amounts and come here not by boat but rather by plane, and to have more people accrued from various camps for resettlement, whereas the two major parties are not all that fond of that idea. The two major parties, well, anyway, Greens, I love their asylum seekers. They want about 30,000 to come annually, whereas Labour wants about 20,000 to come annually. The problem with that is, they want them to come for the same routes the Greens want them to come. But they have a habit of just jumping on boats anyway because there's not enough. The amount of people who are desperate to get to Australia and desperate to get to places of asylum are just so much that they have a habit of just getting on leaky boats. So to stem that, the Labor government has effectively said that all people who are seeking asylum, who come through an irregular method, be it Antarctica, be it through Indonesia, whatever, will have to go and seek asylum in Papua New Guinea, which is, a bit shitty, but, that's Labor's position. So, they've got a PNG solution. Now, the LNP, they've got a very novel situation. Like, they're going back to 1833 on this. They have this great idea where you introduce everyone on what's called a temporary protection visa. A temporary protection visa means that there is no guarantee for anyone who seeks asylum in Australia to stay in Australia for an extended period of time. The problem with that is people cannot set down roots or have much security in investing in learning a language, etc., etc. And there's another really amazing caveat that they've got to this little policy, is that they have to work for the dollar. The problem with working for the dole is that they can't actually get a job. Their visa doesn't allow them to get a job. So working for the dole means they're actually doing work, but below minimum wage, subventing higher wages for Australians. On top of that, they have no option but to work for the dole, which is a condition of their visa. So in a form, it is a type of slavery because they don't have a means of exiting from this work for the dole situation. They're constantly doing this for the dole. So, they're introducing slavery. Which, is all well and good. Like I said, way back to 1833, which we sort of thought that was a bad idea, but Abbott thinks it's a great idea now. Cat, on the other hand, he's got an even crazier situation. Well, I don't know. Crazy, depends if you like your human rights. He wants, effectively, to put lots of little cruise missiles on lots of little boats and send them out into the seas above Australia and shoot down boats as they come across the ocean towards Australia. Irregardless, that's a nice piece of grammar there. Regardless of who is on board and how many people die and whatnot. It's a bit callous, but do what you're gonna do to get elected. So, missiles. It's fun. Housing affordability. Alright, nice and dry topic. A recent survey has shown that 84% of Australians think that housing affordability is the most important issue for the election this year. Unfortunately, no party is actually talking about housing affordability, which is a bit curious. Why does no one want to talk about housing affordability if everyone thinks it's an issue? Which is a bit of a problem. The Greens have a habit of talking about housing affordability. They're sort of, antsy at the idea that we're in 1967, the ratio of income to housing price was 3.2, whereas today that ratio is around 11 to 1, which is it's pretty annoying. So the Greens want to see greater amounts of money invested into social housing, namely basically housing estates, and that to be funded through Commonwealth grants. For example, in Australia we currently have 5% of our housing which is socially owned by the state or in some form that is subsidised by the Commonwealth. Whereas in the UK, that's about 20%. So there is a reduced amount of involvement for the state in regulating housing prices in Australia. So Greens want to increase funding for housing. Just make more houses, increase supply. That's basically it. The LP, I think it's fine. I think it's fine, it's as is. They had a particular policy during the Gillard government, which was the national rent affordability scheme, which meant that you would have an ordinary market price of, say you have a $500 a week rent, and you would rent that out to people for $400. And the Commonwealth government would pay the owner $100 a week, so thus subsidising it for lower income people. That scheme applied for Unilodge. So the private company at which the ANU allowed Unilodge to use its land for a 99-year lease is being subsidised by the Commonwealth government for charging people, in effect, something in the order of $230 a week for their shoebox. Whereas if you go to Burton Garrett Hall and whatnot, you'll be paying $170 instead of that astronomical price, and you actually get a larger accommodation. But it's not just the ANU, it's widespread for all Australian universities and all Australian suburbs and whatnot. There's this sheer lack of supply of housing, which has forced tons and tons of people, in the order of 120,000 people, to become homeless, or just are homeless at the moment, which is the most extreme measure of a lack of housing affordability. So the status quo is just paying a little tiny bit. A little bit, 20% of rent. That's it, just 20% of rent. Whereas the LNP, that is so screw it all. Fuck, let the market rip, that's it. Whatever. Let rip. That's it. Cata, we got no clue what Cata wants. That's it. Coles and Woolies. Coles and Woolies. Ooh, they're an interesting bunch. The Greens don't like the idea of Coles and Woolies controlling everything. They sort of, don't like that at all. So they'd like to see greater market competition through ending of greenfield agreements, which are agreements where Coles and Woolworths purchase the rights to use land in a suburb, like a large block, or in a shopping centre or something to that effect, where they crowd out other competition from Aldi or Costco or whatnot. So they want to see that sort of thing. They don't actually want to see the breaking up of the duopoly. They just want to see a regulatory change to reduce the extent of its market domination. So they got a regulatory action. Regulatory, if I can learn to ride. The ALP don't give a fuck. They just leave it as is. The right of the party thinks it's fine. The left of the party is quite cranky. The cranky people on the left can't do a thing because everyone in the party who could possibly have done something about 20 years ago have all fucked off to the Greens. So there's no one in the Labour Party to actually make anything decent happen anymore. So you effectively have the Labour Party being Lib Light these days. Bit of an issue. So you have nothing because the right dominates its policy. Likewise, in the LNP, we had on Sunday the shadow finance minister Andrew Robb come out and say that we have an oligarchic economy, and Australians should get used to the domination of Coles and Woolworths, which is an incredible, kiss ass to big business, which Australians already think that big business has way too much power as is. But, whatever. Cool. The Libs love big business. Just kiss their ass all day because they're the people who pay their donations. They pay for their election campaigns. They donations out the yin yang. So, fuck it. That's it. Fuck it. Katter. Now, he's an interesting bloke. He likes to say that for some unknown reason, he likes to go and say that the market domination of either Coles or Woolworths should be brought down to 22%. Why 22%? I don't know. It's just 22%. Fuck it. If I know. That's it. That's it. They're just 4 policies. Yeah. Which, in most cases, for example, gay marriage and asylum seekers, you have an increasing scale of fucktardness. Whereas over here it gets a little bit weird. As you can see, the Greens and Katter have a lot in common, but the ALP and Liberals have a lot in common. Maybe we have a sort of cartel occurring here.